Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hello Velocity podcast, where we help corporate women level up without burning out. I'm your host, Brittany Canaski, leadership coach and trainer here at Hello Velocity. And today we're joined by Nicole Anderson, once again, coming back on the podcast. Nicole Anderson, as a reminder, is a career coach and recruiting leader with over a decade of experience connecting great people with great jobs. From leading university career services to managing tech recruiting teams, she has a holistic understanding of the hiring process from both the job seekers and employer perspective. Through her business career coach, Nicole, she helps job seekers achieve upward mobility through career transformation. And in her role as owner and recruiting consultant at Good Work Solutions, she works with hiring leaders to build great teams. A biracial, first-generation college graduate and neurodivergent woman, Nicole is passionate about equitable opportunity in the workplace for all. Welcome back, Nicole.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me back on. I'm so excited to be back on the podcast.
Yes, I had this feeling in our last episode last season. I'm like, you know what? We have so much overlap. I know you're going to be coming back, and I have a feeling you might be a regular occurrence here.
I would love that. I'd love a regular spot at the podcast anytime. Love to talk with your audience.
Yes, definitely. So, as you know, this season's theme of the podcast is burnout. And in one of my previous episodes, I talk about the different factors that play into burnout from a study that I read in the last few months that was super interesting to me. But one of those key factors was job security. And once again, I thought you would be the perfect person to talk through this topic about from your firsthand experience. And again, I love that you have the experience on both the job seeker and the employer perspective. So you have the recruiting inside scoop, but then also you're helping individuals. And yeah, so this idea of job security and burnout, let's start by just talking about what is like this current state of job security in 2026. I know there's been a ton of layoffs in the last year plus, and I feel like we're kind of at like a rocky place when it comes to the job market right now. But what are you seeing?
Yes, I love that this is something that you're thinking about, and because it's something that I think both pools of our clients are always thinking about is job security in 2026. And I would love to actually give a little bit of context to get to like where we are and like why the conditions are a little wild right now. Because I think it helps contextualize what we're seeing. There have been so many layoffs in the last few years, and I think some understanding to how that happened will help us think forward in a positive way, which is that during COVID, the economy was wild. Businesses were not receiving money in the way that they had before. And so, in order to stimulate the economy, interest rates dropped. And while interest rates dropped, companies had access to a lot of cheaper capital, which meant they went on a hiring craze.
Yeah.
And that resulted in the Great Resignation. And that honestly, even though I'm in both recruiting and career coaching, and my job as a recruiter was really hard in that time, I loved the Great Resignation because it felt like there were so many jobs, so much opportunity. And I think a lot of people don't understand what happened immediately after that, which is the layoffs started because those roles that were overinflated, where companies invested a lot of money into hiring through cheap access to capital, then they swung the pendulum back the other way very quickly and laid off a lot of people that they'd hired. And ever since then, we've been experiencing these like moments of seeing lots of layoffs in the news, some unsteadiness. What does it really mean? How does it apply to individual careers? I see a lot with my coaching clients as well. And now there's two new things that I think are really impacting careers and impacting job security. And that's a lot of jobs that used to be the secure ones, the ones that were paid really well, the government jobs, the software developers, the boot camps, those are now some of the most at-risk jobs because of things that we're seeing through federal funding, changes to federal funding, as well as AI. So I think job security is something really important to think about in terms of, um, I think it's going to look different for all of us moving forward. And And I love that we're having this conversation because I think there's a lot of empowerment that people can find in this process as opposed to, will I lose this job? Like, let's think about from an empowered place of how to build a really like broad portfolio of options and potential.
Yeah. Wow, it's so interesting to think about it, how far back it goes too, of like it's not just this past few months that's really impacting the job market. It really does go back to COVID in 2020 and thinking about that pendulum of the job market of like, oh, it was such a job seekers market for so long and it felt so great, all this, the hiring spree, and people are like, oh, this is great, I'm getting a raise, or I can negotiate better. And then it's been swinging back for a little while now too.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And so I like to set that tone because I think we'll continue to see moments of layoffs or AI influencing the headlines that we see about job stability. But I think knowing the facts and knowing what's driving that can help us to feel really empowered because yeah, there's some backstory there, and we'll continue to see layoffs, but it doesn't mean that everything is grave. It just means we have to stay centered and focused and all of these things.
So while we're in this place of the job market and there's a lot of people being afraid of being laid off and they may still be in a current job, but they're feeling this job insecurity. And this could be even leading to burnout because they're so fearful of losing their job. How do you recommend people can navigate this fear of potentially being laid off?
Yes, I think the most important thing that anyone could do to navigate the fear of being laid off and the uncertainty and the anxiety that can come with it is as much as possible, do not let fear in the driver's seat. It is much easier said than done, but it's definitely a theme I'd love to unpack with you a little bit and of ways to do that. Because fear, the more that you give it power and being worried about what might happen, the more that it takes away your energy to stay in that like grounded, empowered place in your career. And you always want to stay there no matter what your company town halls are saying, no matter what news articles are saying. And the more that we can be in that place where you're grounded, the better. So, one thing that I always tell my clients not to do is one actionable way to keep fear out of the driver's seat is to not doom scroll LinkedIn. Do not doom scroll LinkedIn posts where people are looking for jobs and they have had a rough go in their job search. Do not doom scroll TikToks where people are saying the same story. And do not doom scroll LinkedIn job boards. And the reason for that is you'll see a lot of people's stories where they've applied for hundreds of jobs, thousands of jobs. And of course, we have so much empathy for people in those circumstances. And there are thousands of variables in anyone getting a job. And so any one story is not your story. All you can do is focus on your skills, your strengths, and ways to stay like really proactive in your career and not let fear be that dominant voice.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And that probably would work for so many different situations. Like, I feel like I have to say that a lot for clients too, not just in job insecurity, but when it comes to fear in any sort of situation. I feel like this is one of the biggest pieces of advice that people need to hear when it comes to fear is don't let it be in the driver's seat. And even I've had that conversation with clients is like, how can you imagine it in the moment of are you thinking that fear is in the driver's seat or are you in the driver's seat? Like, what do you need to do, even thinking about that as like an analogy of like how can you get fear in the back seat? Like it's probably still going to be in the car with you and it's probably still going to be like talking over your shoulder and telling you all those like insecurities and anxieties, and that's okay and that's normal, but like we just need to get it out of the driver's seat, and you need to do whatever you can do in order to make that happen, and just having that, I think, awareness too of knowing when it's taking over and it can quickly have you spiral.
Yes, 100%. Fear will always exist. Like you'll hear, your own kind of worries come up. And like you said, just keep it out of the driver's seat. And if you can get all the way outside the car and leave it at the gas station, like that's ideal. We would love that.
Love
But
it.
at minimum, do not let it drive your car because it will take you to a city you don't want to go to. So, a couple of ways that someone could not let fear get in the driver's seat is being able to recognize what those fear sentences in your career might sound like, what that job insecurity sounds like is fear. It would probably sound something like, well, if you lose this job, who would hire you again? Or if you lose this job, how would you pay your bills? Or if I lose this job, then XYZ, and it starts to feel like really catastrophic thinking. And so the first thing you could do is recognize that. The second thing you can do is try and think about absolutely anything else. Uh, do not continue down that pathway. Just stop it in its tracks. So recognizing it, stopping it. And another thing that I have my clients do is to start trying to replace some of those things that you'll hear your fear say to you, replace it with things that feel really positive about you and your career. So I
Yeah.
have clients write down on day one before our first session a list of things they're proud of that they did in their career, a list of compliments they get often at things that make them feel good about their workspace. And then in our first session together, in a career coaching sense, I will have them take the ones that feel best to them and keep them on a post-it note next to their computer or on a bathroom mirror, like all the cheesy places where people tell you put affirmations, put those things like, I am a really good marketing leader because last year I brought in, $5 million dollars or whatever the thing is. Or I'm a really great teacher because my students tell me really once a week that they appreciate me. Like those little things, replacing the fear sentences with no, but I'm good at my job. People appreciate me, because the more you can remember that, the more that you'll know maybe this job will go away. This is not to say that layoffs won't happen. I have been laid off, but it's remembering that you have so much employability. And if one company hired you, the next one will be happy to hire you.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had a conversation with a client this week that was, I said to her, I think she and I think so many of us, we're just so good at jumping to that like worst case scenario, or so good at being in those negative fear-based thoughts that we are just familiar with it, and that's honestly become normal for us. But I think the skill and what we need to practice is being with the positive thoughts, like having these affirmations. And like literally I give that recommendation too, of like the post-its on the mirror or at your desk, and reminding yourself of those positive things, because our most of us, our knee-jerk reaction is to go to the negative and the fear. So let's teach ourselves and start practicing going to the positive and focusing on what we are great at and how we can contribute to the next company or whatever it is. And that's a much healthier and happier place to be. So let's try to do that more often.
Yes, definitely. And even to add to that, another thing I love to have clients do, and something I started as a personal practice, is anytime you get a compliment at work, screenshot it, put it in the same folder. If someone tells you they did that you did a good job and they appreciate it, write it down. And on days where you are spiraling, or you feel like, maybe you just had a meeting that didn't feel so great, opening that list of things that you did really well that people said to you can help, like, kind of get back to that positive place where power really sits in. Power sits in your empowerment, your career sits in your positive thinking, as cheesy as that sounds, and not the fear of the driver's seat.
Definitely. Yeah, and I love too your recommendation about, not doom scrolling, especially on LinkedIn. And I wanted to add one that popped in my head too, is there's just so many articles right now out there. I've I've probably seen so many headlines that are some variation of how AI is going to take all of our jobs, or some extreme like that. And I know you mentioned AI a few times already too. And it's one of those, I've heard so many people afraid of this in particular. And something that's helped me, because even I was thinking at one point when it was first coming, I'm like, am I going to somehow be replaced? Like I've seen articles too of, oh, AI can be your new career coach, and just ask ChatGPT for career advice. I was like, oh boy, okay, this is a whole different thing, which sure, I'm sure you can get some new ideas there, but it's very different than working one on one with a coach, as I hope people recognize. But where I was going is that there's just so many of these articles out there. It's really encouraging this fear based thinking. And something that helped me was this idea that this was very similar to, I think, I forget even the timeline of when the internet first came out. There was the same idea of all these jobs and all of these industries were going to be completely wiped out, or there was this fear in all of these articles, and it was the same sort of industry wide or even just nationwide fear. And all of these, places were talking about it, and everyone was so afraid. Oh my God, the internet and email, and what is this going to be? Probably, I would assume like early 90s and such that this was happening. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's going to disrupt some things, but it's not going to completely wipe out, all the jobs like the way people are talking about it. Of it's just such, it's such an extreme and so fear based that people are talking about all the jobs are going to go away. It's like, no, maybe some, sure, but we can't live from that place of fear, and we're not going to know until it happens. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think we can't jump to some bizarre extreme of like the world is ending because of AI. Like, hold on, take a step back. It's not that bad. We'll figure it out, just like we figured out the internet. Like, okay.
Yes, yes. I love that analogy because I totally agree. And I think there's so much fear around AI and so many articles that, remember, articles get paid the more people click them. So they,
Mhm.
unfortunately, people click more articles about fear than about positive things. That's how the
Yeah.
news makes money. So there's so many headlines that you'll see, and it can create fear. And something that I think about in terms of historical reflection, like I love the internet um piece that you bring in. And even I think about, I read something about how when the 40-hour work week was introduced, I'm gonna get miss some facts or bullet points, but it was something about how when the 40-hour work week was introduced, it was alongside a different technology. And the expectation was we figured out how to reduce our hours, and are there going to be any jobs left in the future? And what we do as humans is we don't necessarily replace open time with rest and relaxation and like, guess there's no more jobs to do. As a species, we're always looking for something new to do. So business is looking for that too. If we have tools that make things go faster, we'll still need people in the space to drive some of those processes. And a lot of companies that have laid off people in droves have reported financial losses not long after they did that, and now they're rehiring in larger numbers. So I think, if you ever see a headline that's a little bit fear-based about AI and specific companies, maybe put a calendar reminder for a year in to see how did they actually perform.
That's a great point too, of like actually following through on it. And yeah, and I'm gonna double down on what you said too about headlines are there to make you click. And as a species, we love the fear. We're kind of addicted to like knowing about fear and wanting to like prepare, because our brain goes to like emergency response. I must know as much as I can, and I must click this and try to learn as much as I can. And it's literally called clickbait for a reason, right? They're trying to get us to click to make money. So maybe don't click those articles. Just keep scrolling when you see that. And then they're trying to get you, and let's not let's not fall for that trap.
Yes, 100%. Definitely, definitely. I love it.
Yes. Okay. So now let's kind of shift gears to, we talked about people who might be afraid of being laid off. And now what about this next step of if you have been laid off, and in that immediate short term, I'd say probably within the first few weeks, how do you recommend people navigate those first few weeks of being laid off and the fear, the scarcity, and the potential burnout that can come up there?
Yes, definitely. I think I love this question because I think it's really good to be prepared and to know what this process might look like if you've been through it before. If you haven't, there are some things that will stay the same no matter what. So the first thing is the very first thing is on my website, I have a layoff survival toolkit, and I step by step check boxes that can help walk you through this process. And I created it when I went through a layoff. So I know this process really well, and I have a tool available for free on my website. Um, but what I would say in a general sense is that let's say it's day one, you have that layoff meeting. And the first thing you want to do is understand what the terms of a layoff might be. What is the company, is there a severance package? If so, what does it include? What is your timeline to review any documentation that comes to you? Are they providing any amount of your health insurance? Understanding the terms, ideally in that first meeting, but if not, you'll receive paperwork, read that paperwork. And a piece of advice that I would give to someone is to hire an employment attorney to review a severance agreement if you have one in hand, or if you feel like you should have had one in hand and you don't. Like an employment attorney is really valuable in this process. I hired one when I was laid off, and it cost $500 for 1 hour, and all I needed was that 1 hour. And I really want to be really clear on what I was legally agreeing to, because I was losing my revenue stream. So I think it's an investment I would recommend people to really think about. So that's day one. Understand the terms. Also understand that some of these things are negotiable. You can have conversations with your employer. You can ask for example, more health insurance coverage. Don't rush to sign any documents until you feel really confident and comfortable with what you're signing. So that's like immediate things. But then the weeks that follow, I think you really need to prioritize your stability and health, and I would do that first through understanding what health insurance options you have. And please, 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 I know health insurance is so expensive, but please make sure that you have some type of health coverage if you lose any insurance through your role. If you're losing a role that did offer you health insurance, you'll likely receive COBRA benefits through your employer, but you don't necessarily have to rely on that. You can also get health insurance through the marketplace. So just know that you have options, and they are going to be expensive. But if you're losing your role, the very last thing that you need is to fall and trip on a sidewalk, not have health insurance, and have a 5-figure bill because you got a cast on your leg. Like that could happen so quickly. So please make sure that your health insurance is taken care of. And then other things, these are all like kind of the logistics pieces that I think are so important, but also know that there are really great programs available in terms of SNAP benefits. You can get discounted gym memberships. You can get a lot of things that can help you like feel good and healthy and balanced in this time.
Yeah, I love all these really specific techniques, especially for that first day, that first meeting, even as the layoff is happening. That's super important to know, like what to expect, what to be thinking about, what conversations to be having, what kind of resources, support you're going to need within that first week or so. That's huge, and I'm sure that's when most people are feeling so overwhelmed and just like, oh my god, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what to do. So I love these specific techniques, and the quick plug for your free resource, that is huge and really helpful. And then also I wanted to plug our last podcast from last season. We talked about negotiating if you're being laid off too, so there's I think a little bit more detail in that one too, so you can go back to that as well. And then, yeah, so we covered that first week. What about the next few weeks when things, the dust is starting to settle and you're sitting at home with nothing to do and you're like, uh-oh, now what do I do with myself?
Yes, great question, because you'll have a lot of days where you think, okay, what do I do now? So I think there's a lot of let's say that first day has happened, you've done your paperwork, you've done all the things. The first thing I think everyone should do is like this is so much easier said than done, but like take a beat for as long as you can stand it, whether it's a day. Like at least please give yourself a day before you start looking at LinkedIn jobs. If you can give yourself a couple weeks, even better. But there's a few things that you could do in terms of your next move. You could view it as a sabbatical. You could view it as an opportunity to start something new, entrepreneurial or project, something you want to do. that might not be a full-time job. You could look for a full-time job that's really aligned with your career and your long-term goals. Or you could learn something new. You could go back to school, or you could get a job that helps pay the bills in the interim while you do any number of these things. What I would advise is those are a lot of options. Know you have a lot of options. I would get really clear on what's best for you and maybe pick two of them. So, for example, when I was laid off, I actually didn't apply to any jobs immediately after my layoff. I have my career coaching business, and I viewed it for me as an opportunity to really sink more time into something I'm super passionate about of my career coaching clients, building my business, building systems. And I also did a lot of odd jobs to make some money while I did that. So in terms of like jobs to make a little bit of money, I did Rover pet sitting and like some Uber Eats delivery, and just to feel like I can make money today. This is possible for me. I can go do it right now. So, but I wouldn't do all five of those things at once. I would pick what's best for you. Most people are going to choose a form of looking for that full-time job. But know that it might not necessarily be what is best for you, and that's totally fine. What I would also say, as someone who has led hiring for a ton of jobs and at many businesses, I've hired at a lot of businesses. Most hiring managers are not going to be concerned if you have a small gap on your resume, especially if it's from a layoff, because layoffs have become prevalent. I can tell you as a recruiter, most people I'm interviewing now have gone through a layoff in the last several years. So that old idea of having a job for less than 2 years is a red flag to an employer. Those rules really don't apply anymore, especially like less traditional or fast moving jobs, for example, tech.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That was such a, I feel like, thing when I was first getting into my career, is like the 2 year, you need to be at a job for 2 years or else you look like unemployable, right? And it was such a like myth, I think. And now, yeah, now I don't see it as a thing at all. Like I think so many companies, and like sometimes you're promoted before 2 years, or sometimes you're moving internally, or sometimes you are miserable at a job after 6 months or 3 months and you need to get out. And I think that's totally understandable as long as you can talk about it in an intentional way in your next interview. And obviously there's so many people being laid off. I think hiring managers totally understand that. Like don't let it scare you or hold you back from anything.
Right, 100%. There's so many the people that you're worried about maybe questioning if you have a career gap likely have their own career gap in 2026.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. So then what about after these first few weeks? I know there's so many people too, and again, we kind of talked about this a little bit, that there's so many stories out there of people who have been applying for months and months and months, or 6 months even, or a year, and after being laid off. So how do people navigate that fear? And then again, I think at that point a lot of people are getting burnt out of applying, and it can be really hard on you. Obviously there's going to be more fear involved, and I imagine just really draining on someone to just keep applying and not have it go anywhere.
Yes, and I've been a career coach for a long time. Within the last 1 to 2 years, I really shifted how I work with career coaching clients in terms of strategy, um, which is it's obviously if you're on that pathway of I want my next role to be that career move, that's where I have a lot of expertise is helping people get that next career move with their resumes and all the things. But if that is your next move, job applications are obviously good because you're applying for jobs. Like that's what you're supposed to do. But I think for everyone, whether you're worried about a layoff coming up or you're actively going through a job search, one of the most important things that you have as an asset is your network and your relationships. And so as we're thinking about shifting the idea of like what does job stability look like, what does job security look like, I would love to encourage people to not think about job stability as this is me and this is my job, and I hope my job doesn't let me go, and this is where my funding all comes from. I would love to encourage people to think about it as I am a solo like entity of my own. I have so much to offer the employers. I have so much to offer all the spaces in which I work. And right now I'm in this space. I hope it continues to work. And if it doesn't, what will last through all career changes are the relationships that you have. So making sure to invest in those while you're in a role, if you're looking for a role. And if you are in that job search, obviously job applications are good, but I would at least balance 50-50 of your time to reaching out to your old connections, let them know you're looking for a new role, ask them if they know anyone in the field that you're going to, and then also building new connections. Like if you see someone on LinkedIn that works at a company you want to work at, send them a message. I'm starting to encourage a lot of my clients to do this type of outreach, and it's been really productive. Or go to networking events, whatever feels good for you, but know that networking is a really, really great way to look for that next fit job.
I love that of like building relationships and thinking about the people even like that you want to be meeting of, on LinkedIn, of having those conversations. And it immediately made me think of people that have reached out to me on LinkedIn saying they want to become a coach, and, they love my website and they wanted to learn about my journey. And I always love those conversations because it's fun for me to talk through with someone else like that's passionate about what I do and what I'm passionate about. So you have that in common. And yeah, I think more people are willing to help than you think, So I think a lot of us kind of get in our head of like, oh, I don't want to ask them, or oh, they don't know anyone, or oh, I'm going to bother them. I don't want to waste their time. They're so busy. It's like, no, people want to help other people, especially when you already have a relationship. But then again, even just my example here of even these people I don't know, I enjoy having this conversation. So it's like, yeah, don't let fear stop you. Don't hold yourself back. And yeah, and especially too, if you've been laid off, something to think about. I think we've talked about this in the past, is like all those people that might have been laid off with you then may end up at new companies too. So then you kind of your network is also spreading out, and you have more people who recently worked with you that are then at new companies that maybe they can hire you there as well. So you're kind of spreading out your network that way too.
Yes, 100%. Everyone that you are working with now in the next 5 years will probably be working in another place. So even if you feel like, oh, I'm just networking with people I already work with, they can't really help me. You never know like what people around you will do or how your relationships can evolve. So, I honestly am not a huge fan of the term networking because I think for some people it feels really transactional. And I like to encourage my clients to think of it as building relationships. And I love the example that you shared of people reaching out to you, um, and having those conversations that feel good, because it is that relationship building and knowledge exchange. And anyone who does make time to talk with you about their career are going to be really great contacts because they have a lot of exciting things to say and have great conversations to have. So, you would provide, and anyone listening to this would provide anyone who reached out to them with career advice if they reached out. So just remember it's like a reciprocal type of function.
Yeah, yeah, and one other thing to think about is that a lot of companies also give a referral bonus to someone. So say you reach out to someone about, "Hey, are there any jobs at your company?" And they say, "Oh yeah, here's a link." You can sometimes, put their name on the job application, and then they get some sort of bonus. So it's like actually really nice for them to have this conversation with you. Like there is actually sometimes a literal bonus or benefit to them to have that conversation with you. So again, if you're worried about wasting their time or whatever, sometimes actually they may get a kickback from the company, which feels like such a win-win to me. I love when companies do that, and my husband has done that several times at his companies, and it's fun for him because he's like, I get to work with my friends again. He's like brought his friends along to different companies, and he's like, I get paid to work with my friends. How fun is that?
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I love that. I've been in like virtual spaces where I've seen people post, like for example message boards, and they'll say I work at such and such company. we have great referral bonuses. Anyone want one today? Like, anyone want a
Yeah.
referral? Trying to make money. Like, so remember, I love that.
Yeah, that's a great idea to just share that on LinkedIn. If you're someone who's at a company that's hiring and you have the job security, like here's how to help, again, win-win, help the people that are maybe feeling the job insecurity or looking for new roles already laid off. Be like, yeah, come join my company. I can get a few $100 or whatever it is. And yeah, come join me. Especially, obviously, if you like where you're working.
Yes, definitely. And companies love hiring people who are known to network because
Mhm.
um it's a like person that we can trust to bring into the company and do really well, if by nothing else that their friend works there and they want to make a positive impression. So yeah, referrals are amazing on both sides. I would take as much advantage of it as possible.
So, any specific tips when it comes to applying to jobs or even interviewing after you've been laid off for, again, it could be several months or even right away, and you're kind of getting in your head. I know so many people feel so discouraged. Again, they might have fear in that front seat or fears talking over their shoulder in the back seat. And I think a lot of times we can get in our head and get in our way when it comes to interview, and we may not show up as our best selves. So, any like quick tips for people in that moment or when they're in that situation to help them show up as their best self and also not get sucked into that burnout when it comes to all this applying?
I think in terms of navigating burnout, I'll tell you that the number one thing that I see from people who are burnout in the job search, where they have got burnout, is on this advice of tailor your resume for every job. And I know now with AI, it's supposed to be easier to do that. But the truth is, it burns so much time. And your most valuable resource in a job search and in your career is how much energy you have for the process, how much gas you have in your tank, how full your cup is. So what I like to recommend is let's say you have a 2 hour block, you know, you can be really focused on networking or job applications. Please do not use that most of that block for applying to 1 to 2 jobs. You want to crank out as many possible numbers as possible, and you want to do it as fast as you can. And if you're spending that time getting tedious about tailoring your resume for every job, it kills you, because at the end of 2 hours you're so frustrated and you feel like you didn't make the momentum you wanted to make. So instead, I like to recommend that my clients have 3 versions of their resumes, one that's tailored to each type of job they're applying to. If there's a dream company, you can tailor it a little bit. This isn't meant to be a perfect, don't never tailor resumes rules, but I think if you have 3 good resumes, send them out as much as you can. Keep those networking connections, make as many as you can. As even though it seems like more work because you're technically doing more things, I think it keeps the energy away from burnout. And then the other thing I would say about burnout is that in the job search is please find fun things to do, volunteer, do contract-based work. I fostered a dog who I have now adopted and have had for like 7 years when I didn't have a job, like doing doing fun things that can give that energy back to you and give you confidence is really important. And that's so crucial because honestly, in interviews, hiring teams can really tell who is operating from a confident place, who can come in day one and make an impact there. And if you're experiencing burnout, sometimes teams can tell, they're not really sure why, but maybe they feel like other candidates could be a better fit. So I don't say it to scare anyone, but I say it to go back to the idea of like, please invest in your health insurance. Please get that cheaper Y membership. Like, please take time off if you feel like you need it. The more that you can pour into your own cup in this process, the more longevity you'll have and the better space you'll end up in.
I love these like really specific tactics that people can use in the moment to get out of your head, take care of yourself, and also just make the process easier on yourself because it's not easy and it's difficult and you're going through a lot. So I love all these tips. And once again, you have so many really good tactical techniques for people when you share on here. So thank you for joining us again today, Nicole. This was really helpful and I'm sure is going to be helping so many people who are listening today.
Yes, Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. For anyone going through this, you've got this. You will crush your next steps. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on and letting me talk a little bit about this topic because I think it's a really great one.
Yeah. So how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Career Coach Nicole. You can find my website at careercoachnicole.com. And that's also where I have the layoff survival toolkit that's there for free for you. And then if you're a hiring leader and you're looking for any support in your hiring process, whether you need someone to talk to or you're looking for any recruitment help, please reach out to me at hello@goodworksolutions.com.
Yeah, sounds great. And I will put all these in the show notes so it's easy to get in touch with Nicole. Thank you again for coming back to the podcast. I hope we have you back again in future seasons. And thank you to our listeners for joining today. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform for podcasting. It really helps other people find the podcast and in turn also get this helpful support that they're looking for as well. So that is it for today. We'll see you in the next episode.